Why the Golden State Warriors X Factor is Jonathan Kuminga. As you all know, the Golden State Warriors have lost Stephen Curry to an injury that has left a lot of Warrior fans worried whether the Golden State Warriors can pull it off and continue to win games and make it into the playoffs without Stephen Curry. In today's video, we're going to be going through 5 reasons why Jonathan Kuminga is the X Factor to this Golden State Warriors team and how he can help this Golden State Warriors team continue to win games to make it back into the playoffs and hopefully win another NBA championship. So make sure to like this video, and if you want more Golden State Warriors content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. The first is that Jonathan Kuminga brings insane athleticism. So I think this is something that a lot of people have been excited about Kuminga, but he is an absolute athletic machine. He stands at 6'8", 210 pounds, has an insane vertical, moves like a guard when it comes to speed, and has the strength of a center. And I think it's honestly fantastic from Kuminga, but he does remind me of one player that is already on the Golden State Warriors team, and that is Andrew Wiggins. And one of the reasons why this is so important is that Kuminga, still only being 20 years of age, has so much potential to really push the limits of his athleticism and also help him push further in his progress. Now, when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga, what really does help when it comes to him being athletic is definitely on the defensive end. Kuminga is one of the best defenders on this team, no doubt about it, and when it comes to on-ball defense, he is able to guard point guard all the way through center, which makes him absolutely insanely dangerous. And I think that's what makes this so special when it comes to Kuminga and why he's such a big factor to this team. When Andrew Wiggins is on the floor, imagine having a second Andrew Wiggins in Jonathan Kuminga, and that's when it gets really scary for other teams. So one of the reasons why Kuminga is honestly such a fantastic player is due to the fact that his athleticism has helped him produce much more better results on defense, and they do have him guarding some of the best players in the world, and he's been doing a fantastic job at that. Now, if we look at his average season stats, he actually is averaging 3.1 rebounds and also 0.5 steals and 0.4 blocks. But you got to realize that some of the things just don't show up on the stat sheet. When it comes to his defensive presence, it's definitely felt by a lot of players. He is able to really shift the offense and really get whoever he's defending tough shots or even passing out of shots as well. And I think that's something that doesn't show up in the stat sheet that Kuminga does very well, and also with Andrew Wiggins. And that's why I think that the Golden State Warriors have put so much emphasis on Jonathan Kuminga, on that he can actually be something special, because he is literally pretty much Andrew Wiggins 2.0. Now, he still does have a long way to go. Wiggins has definitely developed into such a great player ever since playing with the Golden State Warriors, but when it comes to what Kuminga can bring to this team, it has been fantastic to see what he's capable of doing on all ends of the floor, whether it's offense or whether it's defense, and especially with his athleticism at a 20-year-old kid, it really has helped him push further, especially on the defensive end of things. The second is Jonathan Kuminga's scoring ability. Now, a lot of you may not realize, but Jonathan Kuminga can score. It may not be the same way that Stephen Curry or Klay Thompson or even Jordan Poole scores, but Jonathan Kuminga's inside presence is honestly felt because he has put up such great performances this year, especially in his sophomore season, and it definitely does show that his inside presence and his inside game is improving time in and time out. If we look at his game so far, he has had such great, instances where he has shown glimpses of being able to score big points. However, due to his minute restriction, only the max that he's ever received is around 28 minutes in a game. It definitely does take an effect on his scoring ability throughout games. However, in the most recent game against Utah, he actually dropped 24. Another game against Brooklyn, he dropped 20. In Milwaukee, he also dropped 19. So he's dropping up some big points against some big teams as well, and I think that's something that is very slept on when it comes to his game and what he is capable of doing. Kuminga may not have a complete three-point shot like Steph or Klay or Jordan Poole. However, he doesn't really need to, especially in this team. The team is looking after for something special when it comes to him providing from the inside, because when it comes to the outside shooting, you leave that for players such as Steph, Klay, and Jordan Poole. But when it comes to inside scoring, Jonathan Kuminga has been able to provide that time in and time out, and when he's given the green light to be able to score, he definitely puts on a show. And I think his athleticism, like we talked about before, definitely helps with his inside presence. He's able to really jump out the gym, get past defenders very easily due to his quickness, and on top of all that, the way Golden State Warriors like to to play is a very fast-paced game, which gets him a lot of touches and a lot of looks at the ring. But on top of this, his field goal percentage is actually very well, especially due to the fact that he is playing a lot more on the inside, playing that power forward and even sometimes small forward position. But his effective field goal percentage for the season is actually 55%, which is honestly insane, especially for a player who doesn't get a lot of looks at the ring. And on top of that, Jonathan Kuminga is in his sophomore season and he's really already putting up such big numbers. So I think it can continue for Jonathan Kuminga, but when it comes to what he really does provide, his inside presence definitely helps space out the floor for players like Steph, Clay, and Poole to be able to get their three-point shots up. Now, this is something that is kind of upsetting about Draymond Green's game. Draymond Green used to be somewhat of a pretty decent scorer where he could give you around 12 to 15 points a game, but ever since that's changed, ever since Draymond has decided just to find Steph, Clay, Poole, and also Andrew Wiggins out on the three. And yes, that may be good, but if you see the way defenses play Draymond Green, they really sag off on him because they know he's not going to shoot it. Kuminga, on the other hand, they have to play all the way up. They pretty much have to mark 5 players to 5 players, but when Draymond's out there, it turns to 5 players have to mark only 4 players because they leave Draymond wide open for the three. Now, Draymond may hit it at times again. However, when it comes to most of the time, they are sagging off as much as possible, and that really does have a huge effect when it comes to them being able to focus on other three-point shooters in the team. So Kuminga providing that inside presence, being a bit of a scoring threat, especially at that power forward position, really makes it very hard for these defenses to be able to keep up, especially if you have someone like Steph, Clay, and Poole out there on the three. So I think Kuminga will be able to get a lot more points as time goes on, but it does definitely show that his inside presence is felt when he has such 20-point games in only around 20-22 minutes. So his efficiency is there as well, which is fantastic to see. The third is his elite defensive abilities. Now, we briefly touched on this when we talked about his athleticism, but when it comes to defense, what I really do want to focus on when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga is his on-ball defense, but not only just that, but his on-ball defense against 1 through 5 players. Now, what I mean by that is Kuminga has been switched on to a lot of guards and also to a lot of big men such as power forwards and centers, and he has done a fantastic job over the last, season or over this season in general at being able to contain them when it matters most. And I think that's what Kuminga has done so far. I do think he does deserve more minutes because he is only playing around 20 minutes per game. And I do think if it was up to 30, you could definitely see him really lock down some of the best players in the other team, even if Wiggins is out there on the floor. I think Kuminga is great to have due to the fact that he's able to guard 1 through 5 exactly like Wiggins. And on top of that, his athleticism does help him be able to jump over bigger defenders to be able to get things such as rebounds, blocks, steals, whatever the case may be. But when it comes to marking guards, that's when it's an absolute matchup nightmare for the other players. Kuminga really does excel when it comes to matching up against guards because he does have the speed of a guard, but he has the strength and the width of someone of a power forward position as he stands at 6'8", 210 pounds. So Kuminga is a very strong player and it has helped him to really grow when it comes to playing defense when it comes 1 through 5. Even if he switched on big men on a pick and roll situation, I think that's where he really does thrive because even if he switches onto a big man, he's able to contain and do the best he can, and he's shown that time and time again. With Stephen Curry out right now, it definitely has taken a huge hit when it comes to their offense, but when it comes to defense, they've definitely seen an increase in the amount of points they're allowing when it comes to all 30 NBA teams. And one of the reasons may be that Kuminga is getting a lot more minutes, and he is actually out there a lot more with Andrew Wiggins and having 2 great defenders in them, while also adding Klay Thompson, who's a great defender as well. It really does make a recipe for success on the defensive side of things, and that's why I think Jonathan Kuminga really does hold the X factor, especially in the defensive area, which is one of his strengths when it comes to his game and why he got drafted by the Golden State Warriors in the first place. The fourth is that Jonathan Kuminga is a high octane player. Now, I think this is something that is so important, and I see a lot of the great teams have this type of player. Now, what I mean by high octane is that you need that player on defense that really does bring the energy both on defense, but it portrays into the offense as well. For example, a perfect example of this is someone like Patrick Beverley. He's a bit of a loudmouth. Some people may hate him, some people may love him, but when he's on your team, he really does give you that energy for all of you to play better defense, for all of you to continue to fight during the game. And I think that is something that Jonathan Kuminga can definitely continues to bring to this team. He's got the energy and he's able to really provide a lot, not only on the defensive end, but the offensive end of things to really keep that hype going. And Beverley is a prime example of this. And even though Beverley hasn't won a ring yet, I think he really does a lot for a team, and he really does help the team believe in themselves and continue to push forward in any type of game. Whether they're down 10, whether they're down 15, Patrick Beverley has that energy, and I think that's something that Kuminga definitely has, and it's one of the reasons why I think he's such a huge X factor for this team, and also for the Golden State Warriors without Stephen Curry. And one of the reasons why I think this is so important is that he comes off the bench as well. If he was playing that six-man role now, as Steph Curry is injured and Jordan Poole has moved into the starting lineup, DiVincenzo and Kuminga coming on, really providing that energy. Kuminga is able to do it on the defensive end, and it really has helped that bench really lift up and be something special. You've seen players such as JaMychal Green, Ty Jerome, also DiVincenzo himself, all really be able to push further when it comes to games, especially down the stretch, due to the fact that the energy is there and they're able to provide a lot for this team. The fifth is that Jonathan Kuminga can play all positions. Now, I think there's something that is very underrated about Jonathan Kuminga, but you could really stick him from point guard all the way to center, and he would be able to flourish one way or another. Now, he hasn't showed it time and time again because he has limited minutes and he's really given that small forward and power forward spot, but I think if you chuck him in at shooting guard, point guard, he will be able to do a good job, get assists off, and be able to distribute. If you put him at power forward and center, you could definitely see him guard some of the biggest players and do a great job at that while also grabbing boards. I think that's what makes him so special, and that's why the Golden State Warriors want to keep someone like Kuminga in their team for the long haul. And I think that's why us as Warriors fans really do love Jonathan Kuminga and what he's capable of, because he is such a versatile player, and if he is given the right amount of minutes and the right amount of guidance, which I think he does have with Steve Kerr, Steph Curry, Andrew Wiggins, Jordan Poole, list really goes on, he can definitely develop into a player that is an all-out superstar. But for now, with Stephen Curry out, I do think he has a huge role to play, and I think it is something that Steve Kerr should definitely give him more of, and especially a bigger role at that and responsibilities. Kuminga is able to do it, and even though he is a sophomore, a lot of us do have confidence that he'll be able to provide for this team time in and time out.